So a while ago I saw this funny video. It was a little boy who was running away from his own shadow, a toddler who just discovered his shadow, but he was so afraid of it. He was crying. So it was funny, but it was also a bit sad. Today we're going to talk about the shadow and shadow work. But I want to address this from Rumi's point of view. So using his beautiful poem, Enough Words, to look at shadow work. I'm going to read the whole poem so that we get the whole picture, and then we'll go through it when we talking about shadow work. Enough words. How does a part of the world leave the world? How can wetness leave water? Don't try to put out a fire by throwing on more fire. Don't wash a wound with blood. No matter how fast you run, your shadow more than keeps up. Sometimes it's in front. Only full overhead sun diminishes your shadow. But that shadow has been serving you. What hurt you, blessed you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. I can explain this, but it would break the glass cover of your heart. And there is no fixing that. You must be shadow and light source both. Listen and lay your head under the tree of awe. When from that tree feathers and wings sprout, and you be quieter than a dove, don't open your mouth for even a coo. When a frog slips into the water, the snake cannot get it. Then the frog climbs back and croaks, and the snake moves towards him again. Even if the frog learned to hiss, still the snake would hear through the hiss the information he needed, the frog voice underneath. But if the frog could be completely silent, then the snake would go back to sleeping, and the frog could reach the barley. The soul lives there in the silent breath. And that grain of barley is such that when you put it in the ground, it grows. Are these enough words? Or shall I squeeze more juice from this? Who am I, my friend? This is such a beautiful poem, and I'm sure even more beautiful in the original language. So I wanted this poem to demonstrate to you something about the shadow, because the concept of the shadow is derived from Jungian psychology, but it is something that even in Rumi's time he was already addressing. So when we think of the word shadow, we think of something that is scary and something that is not always seen. And the only way to get rid of a shadow is if you put light on where the shadow is. But as a photographer, I want to use the example when you take photos and when you sketch. When you want to bring out something to the foreground, you have to have shadow at the back. So it's not as if the shadow hasn't got a function. So when we talk about shadow work, it means that we have to look at or address something in ourselves that we don't often want to see or admit, or sometimes don't even know of, because it is hidden deep down in our subconscious. We can bring it to the light when we face it. So we have to start to become aware of the things in our personality, I will call it, because it's part of the ego, that we don't like. And then we first have to ask ourselves if it's valid. Why don't we like it? Because if something is in the shadow, it doesn't mean that it is not serving you or is not good. Remember, everything is neutral. But it is when you suppress something and you don't want to face or think about it, that it becomes it becomes a thing, it becomes a fear, something that holds you back. So let's go through the poem. I won't explain the whole poem. I'll just look at what's relevant. He talks about how does a part of the world leave the world, and you can't stop a fire with fire, and you can't wash a wound with blood. So what he says is you can't heal something or stop something with the same thing that the same thing of what something consists of. With that, he wants to tell us that duality is needed. Those things that we might see as not serving us do have a purpose. Even those traits that we are scared of to admit, when we admit it, when we see it, that is then often that we see what the purpose of it was. Okay, no matter how fast you run, your shadow more than keeps up. Sometimes it's in front. Now, this is so true, because if there's something that you're afraid of to face in yourself, it might even influence what you will do in future. It definitely will. So it is in front of you, meaning you can't get away from it, and it might even cast a shadow on the things that you want to do or explore. So you can see that it is extremely important to stand still and face your shadow. He goes ahead saying, only full overhead sun diminishes your shadow. So it's only when you stand fully in the light of Source that there is no shadow. But it means, because then you can fully see everything. You can see every part of you, and you then realize that everything is light. Everything is complete. We all have moments when we reach this state, all of us who are on the spiritual path or on the path of enlightenment. And as we advance, these moments of being not only co-creating with the Creator, but being one with the Creator becomes more and more. That happens when we have reached the bliss state, the state of peace, where you have peace no matter what happens. So Rumi talks about it. Okay, let's first look at what he says of the shadow. He says, that shadow has been serving you. What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. So it's often things that we suppressed as a child, that we thought was not acceptable, that others did not approve of, that we pushed into the shadow. So you can see it's not necessarily something wrong, but it is something that society or your parents or friends or circumstances led you to think it's not good. So you have to spend time alone and think back to your childhood days, to your early childhood memories. Think of the things that you learned and believed. You can do this in meditation, or you can just be still with yourself. Go back in your thoughts, because the memories that you have of your childhood are things that were important to you. Memories are thoughts that have emotion attached to it. That's how the brain works. You have the hippocampus and the amygdala in the brain that both work together. So the hippocampus is responsible for memories, and the amygdala for the emotion. So when you experience something that has a lot of emotion, be it positive or negative, you will keep it as a memory that you can easily bring up. Go to those memories. Go to the memories that hurt you and see why. See why it hurt you and what was the result. For instance, if your parents told you that you may not have emotions, then you can suppress it. And it can become something that then, when you interact with other people, you might criticize in them because you are not allowing yourself to have that. So it's very important to become aware of the things that you are suppressing and why. Because that is what Rumi means in the poem, that the shadows are your candle. The darkness, actually, what does he call it? The shadow. The darkness is your candle. It shows you what you need to address, because otherwise you won't know where to look. You can't see it before you've put the light on it, but become aware and then shine this light, shine your light on it. There's nothing to be afraid of. Then he says, I can explain it, but it would break the glass cover of your heart. And there's no fixing that. My interpretation of that is that the heart is very fragile. And this work, this seeing of the self, this enlightenment of the self, is something only you can do. Because it is something that you need to do with love and compassion. Love that is the language of your heart, of your soul. Somebody from the outside can't shine the light on your shadow. That might break you, that might break you. That is how I interpret this. So you must have shadow and light source both. It's just like opposites, duality. And listen and lay your head under the tree of awe. What Rumi means here is we should accept all parts of ourselves. Say it is something that you know is not a good quality. Say you are aware of it, that you are jealous. It does not mean that you then think it's okay to be jealous, but you can just acknowledge that and then see what is the fears, what are the drivers that cause that. But accept yourself first, have compassion, have love. Otherwise, and then when you do that, that is when you integrate your shadow, then you will be free. That is when you can lie down under the tree of bliss. What does he call it? Lay your head under the tree of awe. That is when you reach the bliss state. Imagine yourself lying down under, there's always these big trees that are symbols of wisdom, of ancient wisdom and of protection. It also makes me think of the tree of life. So lay down, Mother Nature accepts us just as we are, just like we should accept others just as they are, without explanation, without change. Just accept. We are accepted. So lie down. And then he says that from the tree will feathers and wings sprout, and you must be quiet like a dove, because the stillness is the place where you will find the greatest peace. And you should not try to figure everything out or to explain everything. He goes on to explain with this whole piece about the frog and the snake, saying that if you're in the water, the snake won't get you. What he's talking about here is that even if there are negative things, if you stay still and quiet and peaceful, those won't affect you. If you are too quick to start to think that you can withstand all the negative influences about you, you might fall back on your path. But he goes on saying that if the frog could be completely silent, then the snake would go back to sleeping and the frog could reach the barley. The soul lives there in silent breath. I did a video, I will link it here, that is about the silence. The silence is consciousness. That is the pure consciousness. That is you, that you experience with when you have silenced the mind, when you have silenced thought, when you are completely surrendered. That is the space behind all the words. That is the space behind thought, behind intention. That is source energy. That is the consciousness that lives on even when you change your form. So when you can reach that state as you are now in this human form, the silence, then you can plant the seeds that will grow. Then you will reach the barley, like he describes it. And that grain of barley is such that when you put it in the ground, it grows. So now you have emerged from that dark night of the soul where you have confronted yourself compassionately, and you are then seeing new growth. But it is only after you've reached that silence from where even the negative things, which the snake is here a metaphor of. I do love snakes, so I like to use them as positive, but in the poem, the snake is the negative things that might come and try to misdirect you. So you will be able to not even be bothered by that when the barley starts to grow. And he finishes saying, are these enough words? Shall I squeeze more juice out of this? Who am I, my friend? So he is also just the messenger representing the collective consciousness or the infinite intelligence. I hope this beautiful poem of Rumi inspired you in such a gentle, beautiful way to do the shadow work, and don't see it as an enemy. See your shadow as actually your friend that's by your side, but you have to put the light on the shadow so that you can see how he looks, how she looks. And then when all the light is shining on you, you can see that you are complete and move forward on your path. I trust you found value in this. If you like it, please like and subscribe. If you have not yet, share it with your friends. And you can book a session with me, be it for spiritual guidance, be it for manifestation guidance. The link is also in the description. Or you can just go to my website, you will find it. I'm sending you my infinite love. Till I speak to you again on Tuesday. Goodbye.